Okay, so welcome to the third day of post-quantum crypto. This session is about isogeny-based cryptography, and the first talk is by Fabio Campos and Philippe Muth. Papers entitled "On Actively Secure Fine-Grained Access Structures from Isogeny Assumptions," and Philippe will give the talk.
Thank you for the introduction. We will, in the next few minutes, discuss our work on actively secure fine-grained access structures from isogeny assumptions, and this was joint work with Fabio Campos. Let us first set the stage. We will be moving in the context of hard homogeneous spaces. Such a space consists of a set E and a group G, and an action asterisk that combines E and G to produce another element of the set E. We will use this bracket notation throughout this talk and also in our paper. We base the security of our protocols on the group action inverse problem. That is, given two elements E and E prime, the probability of providing a G that connects them both is negligible in an implied security parameter. This has an obvious continuation to the bracket notation. Let us have a look at the definition of a key exchange mechanism. It consists of three protocols. First, we have the key generation protocol. In a hard homogeneous space, this can look like this. And secondly, we have the encapsulation protocol. Again, in a hard homogeneous space, this is a rather simple protocol. That is, a random B is sampled, applied to the public key, which results in the ephemeral key, K, and to the fixed element, which gives us the ciphertext C. That is then sent to the owner of the secret key. For decapsulation, the owner of the secret key typically simply applies the secret key to the ciphertext and arrives at the same key K that we got from the encapsulation. However, we consider a context in which the secret key is not held by a single party, but is shared in a secret sharing scheme. When an authorized set of shareholders gets a ciphertext C as input for the decapsulation, they fix a turn order and one after the other apply their respective share to the ciphertext in a round-robin fashion. Eventually, they arrive at the same key that would result from applying the secret key in clear to the ciphertext. DeFeo and Meyer showed that this protocol is simulatable, so no other shareholder can learn anything about the other party's inputs as long as the group action inverse problem is hard, even if we suspect that their proof might not be entirely correct. There is, however, a small problem. This protocol is only passively secure. That is, a shareholder can drop out or provide a malformed input to the decapsulation, and the other shareholders have no way of detecting this misbehavior. The first task that we set out to was to provide active security for the decapsulation protocol. We will use two measures to achieve this. First, we have a zero-knowledge proof of knowledge in the context of a hard homogeneous space. For that, we take a secret S and a list of tuples EI and EI prime in the set E. Each EI prime results from applying S to EI. A prover thus proves knowledge of S beyond reasonable doubt without revealing S. The protocol for this is non-interactive. And second, we use a piecewise verifiable proof. Consider for that a statement X that consists of a pair E0, E1, and a list of SIs in Z modulo P. A piecewise verifiable proof proves knowledge of the polynomial F in ZP that connects E0 and E1 and also interpolates the values SI. The protocol for this, again, is non-interactive. As we saw before, the PVP is not directly applicable to our situation since a shareholder, PI, does not directly apply his share SI to the input, but a multiple of it. We thus had to amend the PVP protocol to fit our scenario. We skipped the precise modified protocols since they do not offer much insight, but directly present the resulting key exchange mechanism. Now, for our key exchange mechanism, we once more need a key generation protocol, an encapsulation protocol, and a decapsulation protocol. We adapted the key generation protocol so that a trusted dealer, as before, samples the secret key and applies it to the fixed E0 to generate the public key. The secret key is then shared among the shareholders in what we call a two-level sharing. That is, the secret key is shared as before, yet each share is shared once more by the dealer, so that each shareholder eventually receives his share Si of the secret key, the polynomial Fi with which it was shared, and that is, his share of the secret key was shared, and a share of each other share of the secret key. We leave the encapsulation protocol unchanged, since it is not affected by the modified sharing of the secret key. The decapsulation protocol underwent the most significant changes. At the core of it is still that a shareholder PI computes his output, EK, by applying his share SI multiplied by the Lagrange interpolation coefficient to his input EK minus 1, where K is his position in the turn order. But in our protocol, he now proves that, give me a second. For that, he samples a pair from the set E that is also connected by his secret multiplied with the Lagrange coefficient. He then proves that the pair EK minus 1 and EK are connected by the same element as the sampled pair, and that he has knowledge of the connecting secret. He furthermore proves that the pair is connected by his share, the sampled pair is connected by his share of the secret key via piecewise verifiable proof. This holds because each other shareholder holds an interpolation of a point of the polynomial with which a PI's share SI of the secret key was shared. By combining the zero knowledge proof and the piecewise verifiable proof, PI thereby shows that EK was computed correctly with his share of the secret key. If all other shareholders participating in the decapsulation agree that PI behaved honestly, then PI ends his turn. Otherwise, the protocol is restarted, but PI is excluded from future runs. The last shareholder eventually outputs the result of the decapsulation. Our key exchange mechanism has the following qualities. It is in CPA. This means that nothing can be derived from a ciphertext generated by the encapsulation protocol. Also, our decapsulation protocol is simulatable. We proved this in reducing the group action inverse problem to distinguishing the output of a concrete simulator from a real transcript in a series of game hops. And third, the decapsulation is actively secure, in that if a shareholder can provide an incorrect input to the decapsulation without being detected by the other participants, then he can break the soundness of the zero knowledge proof or the piecewise verifiable proof. We come to our next contribution, and to be honest, the initial motivation for this work. We initially started out to investigate to which secret sharing schemes the original key exchange mechanism can be transferred and still work and provide the original security guarantees. We came to the conclusion that a compatible secret sharing scheme has to fulfill three main characteristics in order to be compatible. First, it needs independent reconstruction. This means that the input of a shareholder in reconstructing a secret must not depend on what the other shareholders gave as input, since the input of each individual shareholder is hidden from the others by virtue of the group action inverse problem. Second, it needs self-contained reconstruction. That is, the shares of the secret have to live in the same space as the secret itself. This enables the two-level sharing that we use in the key generation. And third, the secret sharing scheme must be compatible with the zero knowledge proof and the piecewise verifiable proof in the hard homogeneous space. Let us have a quick look at some examples of compatible and incompatible secret sharing schemes. Now, Shamir's secret sharing scheme is obviously compatible, since we gave our protocols in the context of it, and the passively secure key exchange mechanism that we started out with was based on it. Tasser extended Shamir's approach in his hierarchical threshold secret sharing scheme. It is also based on polynomial interpolation, yet the lower in the hierarchy you go, the higher the degree of the derivation of the original polynomial becomes, of which a shareholder gets interpolation points. It is directly compatible with our protocols, be it with some tweaks to the PVP. And third, Damgard and Torbeck proposed a secret sharing scheme in which integer secrets rather than secrets from Z modulo P are shared. The confidentiality of their scheme is only computational, and so we deem it incompatible with our protocol. And the simplest of all secret sharing schemes, that is additive secret sharing, cannot support the piecewise verifiable proof with the shares not having any inner structure. It is so incompatible with our key exchange mechanism. Now, in conclusion, we propose an actively secure key exchange mechanism in which the secret key is shared among the set of shareholders and enables decapsulation without reconstructing the secret key. We prove the Encapsulation Protocol simulatable and actively secure. That is, an adversary cannot learn any information from an execution and cannot interfere by providing false input without detection. This key exchange mechanism is also in CPA. For this aim, we transferred the PVP and the zero-knowledge proof to the threshold setting. And lastly, we characterize the properties that a secret sharing scheme has to fulfill in order to be compatible with the key exchange mechanism and the signature scheme. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Thanks. Let me check if there are any questions on Zulip. I don't see any question, so maybe I'll just ask one. With respect to security, like what is the security assumption? Is it like the polarization or vectorization problem, or are you relying on a variant of this for security?
Do you mean what hard problem we rely on?
Yeah, the assumption.
So at the basis of this is that, give me a second and I'll jump to that slide. At the basis is this group action inverse problem, on which in a hard homogeneous space some other problems are based. So
you're relying on that one, no other assumption.
At the basis of it, yes. There are some further problems derived from that. For example, the decisional parallelization problem in the group action in a hard homogeneous space that we use to prove indistinguishability. But at the basis of it, the hard problem is the group action inverse problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other question? I see no question on Zulip. So maybe we can move to the next speaker. We'll have a swap with respect to the program. So the next talk will be by Samuel Dobson. It's a paper by Samuel and Stephen Galbraith on post-quantum signal key agreement from SIDH. So Sam, if you want to take the floor, kind of. You're still muted, Sam.
Yeah, just finding my slides. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. Right, so to reiterate, so this talk by a paper by Samuel Dobson and Stephen Galbraith on post-quantum signal key agreement from SIDH. So Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'll get straight into it. Thank you. So obviously the slightly awkward thing to talk about first is that since submission of the paper, SIDH has actually been broken. There's a number of polynomial time attacks on it. And so obviously I need to acknowledge this first off. One point to raise is that there are some potential countermeasures for these attacks, namely masking the torsion point images and also masking the degree of the isogenies used in SIDH. I might be slightly biased though, but obviously we hope that there are some interesting results in the paper independent of SIDH, that even if SIDH does turn out to be totally broken, then this paper still has something to contribute. But we do obviously hope that one of these countermeasures does pan out to be secure, and that would also provide a secure instantiation of our protocol that we described. So with that, I will quickly talk about the existing Signal X3DH protocol, then talk about our new protocol, and then a brief discussion about the security proof and reduction techniques, which are kind of independent of SIDH. So as you might already be aware, Signal has two kind of main stages in the protocol. There's the initial key agreement where the two parties establish their shared secret key, and then the double ratchet protocol takes over from that point on, and the key is continuously updated. So this provides some sort of forward and backward secrecy after the shared initial secret. So in terms of studying how we could replace this Signal X3DH protocol with a post-quantum version, we kind of need to first characterize its security properties. And this is a little bit complicated because the original Signal protocol doesn't have a formally defined security model or list of security properties or anything. And so the only formal analysis of the protocol has been done after the design of the protocol was announced. So that's part of our paper as well, as kind of evaluating some of these different formal analyses of the Signal protocol and kind of putting them all together in this list here of important properties. So we've got correctness, which means both parties have to arrive at the same shared secret key. Obviously that shared secret key should be a secret. The protocol should authenticate both parties. We should get perfect forward secrecy, and also be able to send messages to other people even if they're offline. So this is known as asynchronicity, or also receiver obliviousness. And then the final property is deniability, which means that if you, after the fact, look at a transcript, there's no non-repudiable evidence that a party was actually involved in participating in a certain exchange. Right. Yeah, so in terms of making Signal a post-quantum protocol, the double ratchet part is pretty solved already. There's known ways to do that using post-quantum chems, but this initial key agreement part is more complicated because there's a lot more keys involved. We've got 2 keys from the initiator and 2 or 3 keys from the receiver that are all combined in different ways to achieve all of the properties previously mentioned. And so there's been a few recent works in the last couple of years on potential ways to do this, to make a post-quantum version of Signal. Both of the concrete proposals require these expensive post-quantum ring signatures to achieve that last property of deniability. And the second one mentioned here also only uses 2 keys for the receiver rather than 3, so it loses some of the flexibility that that original Signal protocol had. So we wanted to kind of propose a new protocol that's based on SIDH, which kind of looks more similar to the original Diffie-Hellman protocol, and also doesn't need this expensive post-quantum ring signature anymore. I've lost the presenter. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, so the main issue with using SIDH for a Signal protocol is that it's vulnerable to the GPST attack, which is an adaptive attack. Obviously, pre-SIDH being totally broken anyway. So obviously this adaptive attack may still apply to the countermeasures proposed. But essentially, our protocol is basically all of the non-trivial parts of it are just to prevent these adaptive attacks. And so just a quick summary for those that haven't already seen it. Essentially this adaptive attack, the GPST attack, just requires taking a public key and maliciously modifying the 2 torsion points in the public key, so that based on whether the exchange succeeds or fails, meaning the other person derives the same secret key as you, you can tell whether you can learn one bit of their secret key each time that the exchange passes or fails. And so by just repeating this over and over again, you can recover their secret key fully. And so both methods of kind of fixing this require somehow proving that you haven't messed with these torsion points. So you can either do that by proving, or essentially giving the secret key of your public key to the other person using the FO transform, or just proving that you do know the corresponding secret key using a proof of knowledge, like the this one presented here. And so the protocol itself now. So originally, Signal X3DH has two keys, like I mentioned, and a long-term identity key and a single-use ephemeral key from the sender, and two or an optional third key from the receiver, which an identity key, a semi-static key, which gets rotated semi-regularly but isn't a single-use key, and then the ephemeral key is single-use. And how the protocol looks is that you basically just do Diffie-Hellman between different combinations of these keys, and then combine all of the shared secrets together using a hash function or key derivation function to get a single shared secret. So our protocol is a slight modification on this. We make three key changes. The first is that we replace this DH1 between the semi-static key and identity key with an exchange between the two identity keys. And the reason we do that is so that we can add these proofs of knowledge onto the identity keys. And because these are quite big and inefficient, we didn't want to add this onto the semi-static key because you would have to constantly regenerate this and re-verify this. So after we've done that to prove that the two identity keys are well formed, we then add an FO transform onto this ephemeral key here, which then prevents all adaptive attacks across all these different combinations of exchanges that are done. After that, we kind of study it in a formal security model that we define in terms of the CK type, ECK, CK plus type notation with these different 8 cases, so that it's more comparable with other key exchange schemes. And the key modification is that we've added this column for the semi-static key and discussed the different combinations of keys that can be revealed by the adversary in the security game, such that the session key should still be indistinguishable from random. And then we've also introduced some new reduction techniques to prove the security of our protocol based on computational assumptions, because there's no gap Diffie-Hellman assumption in the isogeny setting. If you can decide whether an isogeny of the correct degree exists, then you can use that decisional oracle to actually recover the secret. So the original formal, well, not the original, but the first formal analysis of Signal protocol used the gap Diffie-Hellman assumption to prove security. And so these new techniques, these two new computational problems we introduced that both reduce down to standard assumptions in the random oracle model, let us prove security of our protocol based on standard computational assumptions. And you could do a similar thing with the original Signal X3DH protocol as well if you just added this FO transform. So that's kind of independent of SIDH as well. So yeah, just to conclude, obviously the biggest drawback of our scheme is that the proof of knowledge that are used on the identity keys is probably quite large and inefficient. And these only need to be verified like once per contact before any kind of online exchange is done. But it would be interesting and useful if there was more efficient proofs of knowledge for SIDH keys like this. However, the actual online part of the exchange, when you want to send a message, want to establish a shared key, is actually quite compact because SIDH has these nice short key sizes for post-quantum schemes, and the only extra addition is the FO proof. We hope that the analysis in terms of this new security model that kind of shows the exact security of Signal in the CK type notation is useful. And we also hope that SIDH does turn out to be secure in some way, so that this protocol can be instantiated. But yeah, that is all from me. Any questions?
Thanks a lot, Samuel. So let me remind our live audience that questions can be asked on Zoom. Let me check. Yeah, currently there's no question, but please go on Zulip and ask any question you may have. Maybe I'll ask like easy question. Like you mentioned the mask degree and mask SITA stuff. But what about C-side? Like, is there already a Signal, a C-side version of Signal, or?
Yeah, so you can, so wait, I'll go back to the original, the first slide. Sorry. So the theoretical work that I mentioned, where is it? The theoretical work that I mentioned in 2020 proposes a split chem, they call it, and then instantiates a signal protocol using the split chem construction, and they suggest that Seaside might be a secure instantiation of split chem. But that's kind of like an open question if it really is. Like there hasn't been any analysis of whether Seaside does meet the required properties of a split chem. But yeah, you could just drop Seaside in basically directly into the protocol, and you would get a protocol that would probably work. But it would just need more analysis about whether it actually does work for this split chem thing.
Okay, thanks. I'm checking the slip, but currently there's no further question. So we can maybe make the swap. And thanks a lot, Samuel, for your talk.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now go for the third and last talk of this session. This is a paper called Attack on Shields and Heels, Second Wave of GPST. The presentation is given by Yifu Lai, and this is joint work with Stephen Galbraith. Yifu, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks for the introduction. So in this one, we will talk about what's SI data exchange and what's GPST attack, and also the proof system proposed by Fusa and Petit to prove the well-fullness of SIDH type public key. And now I'll represent an adaptive attack against the mechanism, and also together with the deployed crypto system using this kind of mechanism. So firstly, about SIDH, an isogeny is a morphism between two elliptic curves. And this isomorphism in the image curve is uniquely determined by the kernel. So the kernel of an isogeny we consider the n-torsion subgroup, which means that the n times multiple of a point will go to the point at infinity. And a theorem tells us that it has a two-dimensional ring structure. So what is so in SIDH key exchange, Alice will has her own public key, Bob will has his own public key, and then they exchange the information. Here, Alice will compute an isogeny phi A prime with kernel P prime plus A Q prime, where P prime and Q prime are given by the public key from Bob. So what GPST attack do here is Bob will manipulate the point P prime and Q prime, and Alice will tell Bob whether the isogeny should compute and the curve should compute and the curve given by Bob are identical or not. This captures the fact that after the handshake in a protocol, two parties will make a confirmation to make sure that they will using the same shared secret to do some encryption or decryption later on. So easily speaking, the GPST attack here, Bob just to manipulate P prime and Q prime, P prime and Q prime, and Alice will tell Bob whether the manipulate kernel will identical to the original one, and she will also do a well pairing check here. We can take A equals 3, for instance. And this is PQ, because it is two-dimensional, we can represent in the following way. The original one is the correct kernel. And then Bob will manipulate the later point by adding 4P here. And you rewrite this kernel, you can see the former part identical to the later one. So this kernel identical to the original kernel if and only if the LSB is 0. So that's how we can get the LSB of the secret key. And later on, Bob manipulate the next bit to extract the next bit as the following way. And you rewrite this kernel, and you can see whether this kernel is identical to the original one, depending on the next bit of Eddie's secret key. So this is why we can get the next bit by using this. And as mentioned in the previous talk, this can be easily prevented by using FO transform. But the problem is that it will result in a static to ephemeral only crypto system. A static to static crypto system where two parties can use static long-term public key is always a more attractive option. And as mentioned in previous talk, you can use in some unexecutable systems or multi-public key technique that is called KSIDH to prevent this attack. But it will result in having a large number of isogeny computation, not constant in lambda, and somehow larger public key size. In Encapsulation 2021, Fusao and Petit they give an interactive proof system for the correctness of the public key. And it can be used to construct efficient static to static key exchange or public key encryption and with low bandwidth. The high-level idea is in their work is to use commutativity of isogeny. By some mathematical theorems, we know these isogeny, they are isomorphic. But in fact, in showing this paper, if both parties are using value formula, they are not only isomorphic, they are identical. So the curves are identical and the evaluations will be the same. So in GPST attack, Bob manipulate the points, then the final evaluation might not match the original one. So in this work, we notice the flaw in the proof of the proof system in their work. And this flaw implies that the proof system is not zero knowledge. And based on this flaw, we derive a concrete attack to extract user's secret key again. The attack is efficient. It only requires lambda times interaction with the proof system to break the crypto system and using this mechanism. So can castrate the crew attack apply to Shields and Hill crypto system? The answer is yes, but not in polynomial time. And how about Robert's passive attack? The answer is yes, and also in polynomial time. So what's the value of this attack is at the current stage, it really depends on whether we can have a secure variant of SID key change, and then we can consider the adaptive attack again. So only theoretical and technical values here at the current stage. So finally, we can talk about our technical overview. And the technical overview is quite similar. In their proof system, Alice will check these three equations, and where kernel is computed as the following way. And this blue part is something can be manipulated by Bob. And actually, in our attack, we only consider this RA and SA only, and those in red are related to Alice's secret coefficient. Firstly, we show these coefficients are related to the Alice secret key with this equation relation. And to extract first bit, we try to find special matrices P1 and P2, such that P1 of the matrix equal to matrix of P2, and determinant has to be 1 for the parallel parent check. We can find these pairs, then we can extract the first bit. And this is what we find. We just use this simple matrix here. And this condition, you can prove that it is if and only if the secret key is 0. So in this way, we can extract the first bit. So it goes to the higher bits. We use similar technique as GPST attack, but this is not gonna work because the parent check or the equation 2 will not be satisfied. So we use the idea of to use GPST attack twice. So we manipulate the second point. The second point can help us to extract the inverse information of Alice's secret key. So that's why we call reciprocal GPST attack. So in this way, we can extract the inverse if SK is invertible. So what if SK is not invertible? We use the commutativity method again to extract the power of 2 factor in Alice's secret key. So the final step, we just ignore those 0 parts, and we just consider those parts that can be inverse. So which means that we consider the inverse of SK and divide by the maximum power of 2. So this is overview of our attack. Firstly, we use the commutativity method to extract the first bit and recursively until 1 appear, and then you ignore those 2 factors, a power of 2 factor, and then we use reciprocal GPST attack to extract next bit again and again, and then we finally extract the whole secret key of Alice. So in this one, we present a new adaptive attack against SIDH type scheme using commutativity to try to prevent the adaptive attack. And this attack is quite efficient. It runs in polynomial time. So some open problem is that it is possible to have an efficient and secure variant of SIDH against the castrated crew and robbers attack. If so, can we have an efficient proof system to prevent adaptive attack again? Okay, that's my talk. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Yifu. I remind the live audience you can ask questions on Zulip. At the moment, I see no question on the chat. So maybe if you can go to the last slide of your presentation. Yeah. What's your opinion on U2 open problems?
Personally, my personal opinion is things to, because the technique is just to mask the degree, so that the attacker cannot know the total degree, the degree in total. I don't really, my personal opinion is now I don't really think this simple trick can really prevent the attack.
Mm-hmm. And what about the second one? Assuming that a mask SIDH or mask degree SIDH works?
We have a secure variant. Like for example, you can have some. You can consider to have some efficient proof system. For example, you can consider to use some. Probably you can consider to use some generic method like I have some discussion with my colleague here in Shai. We have some we have some estimation if we just use some snark proof system, and this can have a very succinct and simple time for the verifier, but not for the prover. But this is one off, so I think it might be a possible option.
Okay, thanks a lot. Checking if there's any more question on the Zulip. No, I don't see any more questions, so I guess we'll conclude this session here. Thanks all for attending, and the next session will be an invited talk by Work Bullets.